Falcon 9. The Iridium-1 launch, Iridium NEXT, which is a constellation of satellites. I think 85. The first 10 are launching.
How
So we're
hot
at
is
max
that?
U.
It looks really, really
How
hot.
hot is that?
Yeah, how hot is that fireball?
I don't know, but extremely hot. It's the vent going out the back of the rocket.
That's not as impressive looking. They should zoom
Yeah,
back
yeah,
in.
the
Zoom
far
back in.
shot.
Come on, camera guy. There you go.
So it is me, your host for the Today in Space podcast, Alex Orphanos, and my friend John. Welcome back, my friend.
Hello. Good to have you. So, we're about 3 minutes in and it hasn't blown
3
up.
minutes in, hasn't blown up. So this is the first launch since the big explosion that happened last time, which wasn't even during a launch. It was actually during just, the events they do prior. You know, they're filling up the fuel, making sure it's ready. So they weren't even ready to launch.
That makes it kind of worse. I thought it was. I thought they sort
it's
of hit
better
the
for the
ignition
stats.
and then.
Yeah, it's better for the stats.
Okay. So now that they're in.
Okay, so that's probably the second stage reigniting. Yep. So that's the first stage. The first stage is going to come back down and land on the drone ship, which is it's not the one they've been using recently. I don't think it's Of Course I Still Love You. They were talking about it before. You see down there, underneath the nozzle, you can actually see the first stage going back in. You know, the great thing is, they used to just toss these, as one-offs. And so this is going to be the first time. This is the first time they've reused one of their first stages.
So this rocket has already done this before.
Mm-hmm.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
So
just like the shuttle, where they kind of do a little bit of tweaks, make maybe a little fix here or there.
So where is this thing going right now?
The first stage is going to... Well, let's see here. Yeah, the first stage, recovery. So the first stage is coming back. It's going to land on the drone ship.
Flip maneuver where the rocket is moving in one direction and it will actually flip itself over. Then it will light the engines on the back end, and that will begin a boost back burn to bring the first stage back towards the...
Beautiful.
So this thing is only going for a little joyride, more or less.
Pretty much, yeah, just
Because
to get us up there.
They've been sending some of their stuff to the space station, right? But not these rockets.
The first stage, yeah, the first stage will never make it to orbit. The first stage brings the second stage into orbit, so then the second burn can get us into orbit. Get us further in, because it really is. It's shocking how much we don't know about the perspective. You see the picture of the moon and the Earth next to each other.
Right.
You couldn't fit the moon and the Earth actually in the same picture without them being really small. So. Yeah, so they're making their way back down. Here, let's scooch over here and make room for Sara. We can use this mic here.
I think we look better than these three people. They don't know what they're talking about.
I gotta say, SpaceX's operations, what they do every launch, is pretty cool. Their broadcast, what they do with it is so cool. I love the thing on the bottom here, where they show you what's going to happen next on the mission, so we can actually start paying attention. We're okay, so we know we've got a little bit of time before it re-enters. The first stage. So those are the grid fins. So those help control the rotation to make sure that when the rocket comes in, it's not spinning out of control. Yeah, and it's going to guide it back down.
So they really
once there's air to actually guide it.
It's funny how the running joke is NASA, right?
Mm-hmm.
NASA, don't watch the NASA launches. They're so boring.
Right.
Don't watch them. Turn off your TV quick. It's that bad. But now this is that perfected.
Yeah, they're
I don't want
doing
to say
a next
perfected,
level.
but it's
right.
definitely going in the right direction.
It's going in the right direction of giving the people what they're looking for,
Yeah.
which is okay, I know entry's coming in soon, and it's not super complicated, which hopefully is what I'm trying to do with Today in Space, but...
Wait, so they're in space right now? What?
Well,
Hang
arguably...
on, you lost me.
The edge of space.
No, you're right. No,
the edge of
that's-
space.
that
Yeah,
was-
they're right.
Okay.
That's the infinite darkness. Right
Forgot
there.
what space looks like. Okay, so the entry. I remember the one last time. That's where it simply just basically starts descending back down, but like backwards almost.
Yeah,
not backwards, but you're going.
Yeah, when it would lift off this way, it's coming back this way.
That seems complicated.
Yeah, so here's the first stage reignition. So this is going to happen pretty quickly, actually. So the grid fins are going to move to help readjust it as it's going back down. And people might go a little crazy here. So this is historic because we're retrying a landing after they just had the big mishap, which had nothing to do with their launch operations. And this is also the first rocket that's been reused. Ooh. So this is the first step into the reusability.
Wow.
Yeah.
I like
coming back with a bang.
People being frugal.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah. It's so wild to see this live as it's coming back in. Because usually we see this like after the launch, so this is pretty cool. This is the first time I've seen this. So I think what's going on with the bottom there with the gas, I think the engine is priming. I don't think it's lit yet. Yeah, it's just falling, and the grid fins are keeping it from spinning a little too much. Like, you know those things like they fall from the trees and they spin around?
Yeah.
You don't want that to happen with this.
Or you don't want that.
No. Oh yeah, you can see the waves in the ocean there. Okay,
wow.
It's relit. It's coming back in, and it's just gonna land on the drone ship in the middle of the ocean.
Just casually.
All right, here we go. Yeah, you can see the drone ship there, right next to the. Oh, here it comes. Oh shit! There it is. Here it comes.
That's so cool.
Here it comes.
That's an awesome angle.
There's the legs. Oh, that's looking good. Oh, that is. Just read the instructions. Oh shit! Is it up? Is it up? It's up.
Woo!
Wow.
Holy! And that whole thing was reused?
Yeah.
Wow.
Very impressive.
Don't want your face blocked.
Oh.
This is so cool, man. Yeah, so the other one they've been using before, what they're talking about right now, is the first drone ship they used to land all the other rockets was, of course, I Still Love You. And this one, just read the instructions, we've never landed a rocket on this one. And each ship like works with the rocket to like move itself into position. They both work together.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's even more complicated.
Yeah.
I was going to say, that's incredibly complicated.
Super complicated. Yeah, this is something I like too. Sorry, John.
Who is at the helm controlling this thing?
A whole bunch of people.
Do they have a room like NASA?
Yeah, they have a control room. Yep. We might actually get to see it here.
Who's this guy?
I don't remember his name, but he's a guy who's been in the industry for a while. He's our kind of, what I would guess is our kind of mission specialist. Like he's not a mission specialist. He's the guy who's going to give us the mission critical information of what's going to come. You know, he's kind of like your technical guy. And then the other group of young guys and girls, they are there to kind of tell us all the extra stuff, kind of get us the info, tell us what's important about that. Yeah, so now we're going into parking orbit here. So this is the whole reason this launch is happening in the first place.
So what did it just drop off?
It hasn't dropped off anything, but we're in parking orbit. So what it's going to do, if I'm not mistaken... Yeah.
But the team's going to drop off for the moment. We'll leave you with the animation graphics,
and
we'll come back as we get ready for the relight of the second stage engine coming up.
Cool. So the second stage, what's going to happen with the second stage is parking orbit it's in a safe place where it doesn't have to use any fuel. It's going to sit there while it's getting itself in position. It's going to keep going around, and once it gets to the point where it needs to relight to get to the higher orbit to release those satellites, that's when the second stage is going to start. And that's going to bring it up there. So, all right, now we have to get on Facebook Live because it didn't work.
Oh, so we're just going to do it as recording?
Well, I'm doing the first recordings we at least had it during launch.
Okay.
I wonder how...
Why?
So I'm looking at all these. Here, wait. Go back down. Look. It says, okay, none of these. All of those pictures above are all people using their phones. I wonder...
You think it's only a phone thing?
Well, no, because that doesn't make sense.
I could hold a phone.
No, I don't want you to hold the phone.
Can you see yourselves?
You gotta turn that around.
Oh.
That's your face. It's
Okay.
live. Yeah. It's live. I would turn it around.
There it goes.
Hey everybody, sorry about the late broadcast here. We've got Sara working the camera.
Thank you, Sara.
And it's me and John here. So, the SpaceX launch went well. So, Iridium NEXT is in parking orbit right now. So the first stage came back and landed on the drone ship. Just read the instructions. So that's important for a couple of reasons. So number one, the Falcon 9 that was launched today was reused. That was one that was already launched, and we have finally entered the reusability phase for SpaceX, thing they've been talking about forever. So that's going great. And the drone ship, just read the instructions, it's the first time we've ever landed a rocket on that one. It's always, of course, I Still Love You, which is the other drone ship. So, John, what did you think about it?
I thought it was excellent. The fact that they made it so seamless. And if there wasn't any cheering in the background, you would think that this was just another day in the life of the SpaceX folks. So what happens now? Is this something that now that they've proven that this can work at least more frequently, what happens next year, 10 years? How do these things get used?
It's going to be interesting to see. It's a stepping stone. So for them, it's showing the world that their system works, which is huge, because when that rocket blew up last August, on the stand, mind you, it wasn't even launching, it was just fueling, it was the day before. So it was just operations they do regularly. And that rocket exploded, and at the same time, Tesla, which is another company owned by Elon Musk, the stock dropped $40 the instant that rocket blew up on the pad. So it just goes to show you like the influence that Elon Musk has, and just the influence of something, a project he's doing has. Like, it's not even the same company, you know. So I think your question is really good, because it's true. It's like, what is the next step for this if another company's success hinges on this rocket company? You know what I mean? So actually, let's take a quick look at the Tesla stock price, see if it went up, because I was shocked.
Well, it is a Saturday.
$237.75. That's up $8.16
Hang on.
today.
No.
But it started. Is this post? Oh, I'm sorry. This is after hours.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah.
So still leading up to.
There was confidence
There's
at the end of the
confidence.
trading day yesterday, and even after hours. After hours, it still remained high. So yesterday, all the people foresight.
That was looking good.
Paid off.
That's huge. That's huge. I mean, just look at the beginning of the day. It went down. It jumped up from 229 all the way up to 337.76 by the end of the day. I mean, that's
a good
confidence in his work. So that's huge. Right now with the mission, the second stage, and the Iridium constellations, 10 of 85 that are going to be launching, which is going to be fascinating. It's basically going to be like a giant atom of small satellites that are going to be spinning around each other and the planet, so that they can bring communications to people around the world. So that's what Iridium does as a company. And they were talking about in the pre-broadcast that Iridium, that originally they did that because it looked like an atom, you know, with the satellites moving around the planet, stuff like that. And they chose Iridium at first because it sounded cool. And then when they re-looked at it and they figured out, however, I think it was like 85 or so, it was like another element that really didn't sound that cool as a business name. So
no, Iridium works.
Yeah, Iridium works.
Go with it.
That's cool. At first I thought it was for like Iridium flares, because Iridium is something they use on old solar panels. You can actually see Iridium flares in the sky. You might see like a streak all of a sudden, or something just like when you're in the night sky, you see it moving, it gets bright and then disappears. That's the sun reflecting off of those satellites, off of the solar panels, and you're just seeing the angle right above you as it reflects and then it goes away. It's crazy. It's crazy. So this is in parking orbit. and that's going to keep going until the second stage relights again, and that's going to be a while from now. We're at almost 18 minutes after launch, and if you look at the live broadcast, which is at spacex.com/webcast, it's not even a quarter of the way there, so we've got some time. We've got some time. So John, what do you think about the difference between, because you've probably seen a NASA broadcast before.
I can't recall one in particular, but I remember the theme. It's basically just a static camera, and there's just one camera, and you're looking at the rocket, and there's no commentary, or if there is, it's very minimal. And then you hear some headset chatter, and it's all just jargon for most people.
Yeah.
Right? But this is something where they give you, they are giving you commentators at desks, and they're going to the panel, and it's very much set up.
Active.
It's set up
it's
like
fun, kind of.
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah. NASA, when NASA started broadcasting, they weren't, trying to direct at an audience. They were basically just saying, "Hey, this is happening. If you want to watch it, here it is. If not, no big deal." But now, SpaceX, they're clearly trying to target specific people, and, this looked like something you would see on TV.
Right.
Right?
Right.
It feels like, like a
NASA
TV
felt like a
sort
PBS
of talk
special.
show almost. Not a talk show, but
Right.
like a news or topical show. Something like that. So, I think they did a good job with that.
Yeah, I'd agree. And not to, look, I'm a huge fan of NASA. NASA, we wouldn't be here with SpaceX without NASA. So, it's not, counting down NASA. It's just, think about the position they're in, right? Every few years, they have to argue for budgets, for programs to either side, whether it's the Democrats, the Republicans, it could be anybody. Every year they have to pander to make sure that thousands of people have jobs or that projects get funded. I've been victim of itself, not government stuff, but when funding runs out, your job runs out. That's just the nature of the job. So, with all these things that they're doing, when the public interest isn't there, they have to, like you were saying, they have to do a broadcast to the people that are paying attention, which are the people that are really super, super intelligent, involved in the space program, so they want the really high information stuff. They really want that as information. And plus, if there's not a lot of people listening, you're just kind of doing what you do regularly, because okay, we're going to get 10,000 people to watch.
Before it was like a public service.
Yes.
Here it is. This is evidence that here's us fulfilling our duty and sending stuff into space. Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
They're commercializing it. In a good way, because it gets more eyes on it.
Yeah.
Interesting thought. A lot of people that I know had no idea what SpaceX was or what they were doing or anything until that rocket blew up last time.
Yeah.
So huge, huge financial hit. But the people who aren't paying attention right now, they may be the people who pay attention to, like, videos of stuff blowing up on YouTube.
Right.
So, I think a lot more people were anticipating this launch, not hoping that it would blow up, but simply because, ooh, this thing blew up.
Right.
Will it blow up again? So there are eyes on it this time that wouldn't have been watching it last time. Yeah,
I agree completely. That's a pretty solid, guesstimation of really where it's at. That's one of the things I've dealt with in the last 2 years of doing the Today in Space podcast, is the time we get the most views, the time people are really paying attention, is when something goes wrong.
Oh, yeah,
All 13 is the
right.
biggest example of that, right, guys? The video, the movie is huge, but the real life event was huge as well, and that's a pretty interesting place too. NASA found itself at that time, where the Apollo program, we'd already gone to the moon, and they joke about it in the movie that we already made it to the moon. Why are we still funding this? It's like, what? We're going to the moon because it's the human adventure. It's about getting there. We went there originally because it was military. NASA at that time, the beginning of the space race, that was all government spending. That was a national defense expenditure. You know what I mean? So there was a reason to go. People were paying attention because if we didn't do it, the Russians were going to do it, and the whole fear was they're just going to drop a bomb from the moon, which is crazy, but that was the fear, Where now you gotta, and even at the Apollo 13 era, there isn't that fear behind it. Like, oh my God, if we don't do this, this could be the end of us, which is like a strange place to find yourself. And with this new space race, with new space, you'll hear that term if you listen to this stuff. It's smartly, the government side of it, NASA has said, we're going to have private companies do this. We're going to have private companies work on these things because their budgets are going to be whatever they can do. So they're not worried about whether a politician likes them or whether, they can get something passed by Congress or Senate or whatever, or even the president, they can do whatever they want, and then NASA can focus on bigger and better things, and not put the money in the different places.
So where does that leave NASA? So if all of these side missions are being privately funded, what is
eventually? Yeah, we're not anywhere near that point. Just to make it clear.
But eventually, in 2030, however many years, what is NASA left doing?
I think NASA's got just a huge amassing of knowledge. So they're like the Encyclopedia Britannica of space travel. Like, they know all that stuff, and the people that are working in NASA are large experts. So NASA's never going to go away. NASA will end up being more like Starfleet in
that's promising.
Yeah, in Star Trek.
I like that
where
idea.
It's the overheading organization, where SpaceX is going to launch from Cape Canaveral and NASA works with them. Or NASA comes on as, another committee member when Blue Origins decides to put an orbiting station with people on board all the time. And then we get our first orbiting space hotel. That in the next 50 years is totally possible. And it wouldn't happen within our lifetime if we didn't have a private space program doing this. Because if it was the government program, it's just not going to happen. It's just not built for that.
I just want to remind everyone that Sara has been holding up this phone like a champ. So
amazing.
So just like a brief shout out to Sara for holding up the phone. Thank you.
There you go, Sara.
So, not to bring politics in, but just to bring in the daily, the news of the day. So there's not a fear, but maybe history will sort of repeat itself, and there will be this sort of aggression to advance past other people. So if this stuff, if space and, sort of controlling the atmosphere, so to speak, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah. You're talking about like the environmental stuff we've been doing lately?
No, sorry, not the atmosphere itself, but just, being
able to go into space?
Being the ones in space looking down on other countries as opposed to the other way around. And I don't mean strictly satellites, but you follow. Being the nation that is in space. Yeah. And the only nation that's in space.
Well, we're not the only one.
Well, that's true. Right. But we're probably the most dominant, you would say?
Well, last year's stats, let's look at it. China had the most.
The most what?
The most launches. We came in second. Russia, I believe, was in third. If I'm wrong, let me know, guys, but I'm just going off the top of my head. And India was actually, I think, the next country that had the most launches.
Well, maybe not just launches speaking, but just
presence in space?
Presence, influence, just power in general. So why isn't there, if this is within our reach, why isn't there more of a drive to, whether it is fear-based or whether it is just, people being curious, why isn't there that drive?
I think it's a complicated problem, just like life in general. You've got... The economy's not great. So when something like space, space budgets get involved, where tax money's going, why are we going into space if we have... The big thing I've heard is, why do we go into space if we're not even good on Earth? Why are we going to space? And because, number one, my biggest thing is just influence. Like, doing crazy, impossible, incredible things gives people hope and gives people something to shoot for that's bigger than themselves. It also gives us it also keeps us focusing on we're all human beings on a planet, not we're these people in Boston and fuck those people over in New York. You know, like, it keeps us being a human-centered population, right? And so we should keep doing that. There's also the technological advances, you know, MRIs and things like that, you know, we just sequenced DNA for the first time in space. So
That's good.
that's good.
That's good.
And so we're going to find out, we also grew heart cells in space this year. So
Also good.
we can start, you know, a lot of drugs that we've been testing in space and in orbit on the International Space Station, those things are helping us advance things on Earth so they can help us. So keeping presence in space is huge for us technologically. I mean, we are in the technological age, right? And everything that the cell phones that we have, all these things that we're doing, we need satellites like the Iridium stuff that's going up today. Like, that's the way we communicate. So all that stuff needs to keep going and getting better. But the other thing too, I lost where I was going with that. Was here, and then it was gone. But
Do you think bees can sort tiny screws in space? That's
Bees?
like bumblebees. That's a lifelong question of mine. I need to know whether or not
we might be able to
bees
train
can
bees.
sort tiny screws in space.
We might have that problem. Yeah,
We may have an answer soon,
soon.
but not soon enough. Because clearly I've already waited this long.
We will have an answer for you by the end of the decade, hopefully.
That's promising. I've already waited a couple, so this is good. This is good.
Tiny screws, sorting screws. I'm going to bring up the tiny screws up space, sort them up there, because it's easier for the bees to do it? Or are we sorting the screws on the space?
You know, I haven't thought past
Okay.
just the thought of bees sorting tiny screws. Everything past that, I mean, is in the, early
stages.
early stages.
Okay.
Very preliminary.
I wonder if the bees will have to take time to learn how to fly in zero gravity, because that might be different. Probably less work.
That is an interesting thought.
Yeah.
Something that is that small.
Mm.
I mean, they would still have to use their wings. They would probably have an advantage because,
Yeah.
we don't really have wings. You know, we can kind of flap
don't?
our arms around. You should really get checked out.
Okay.
But most of us that don't have wings, we can't flap our wings in space.
Right.
But bumblebees could. I don't think they...
How do we get on bumblebees?
Tiny screws.
Tiny screws, you're right. That's what it was. It was the tiny screws.
Some people may get what I'm talking about, but I don't think anyone understands what I'm talking about anymore.
Oh god! So,
So-
if you're catching in just now, this is the Today in Space Launch Hangout. So we're gonna try and do these from time to time. We did these once or twice, I think. John, did you come on for a launch hangout once?
No, never
No?
live. This is fun.
Okay. So we're just hanging out. That's exactly what it is. The technical side, if you really want the technical side, all that stuff's out there. We're just here to have some fun and hang out and watch a launch. So right now we're about halfway to the second stage launch, which we probably won't get to in this broadcast, but if you guys like what we're doing, if you guys want to have some fun and listen to space, go to todayinspace.net, or you can find the podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, or like any podcast app that you guys are using. And it's also brought to you by AG 3D Printing, which is my 3D printing company. It's a 3D printing service for all of you guys. If you guys have an idea and want to bring it into reality, we can do that here. Reverse engineering, we can help you design, or if you just have a model you just want a part, we can make that for you. So that's all here. That's at ag3d-printing.com. So business over.
I need some tiny screws.
So the
Printed.
bees can sort them.
Yes. If anyone can answer that, please reach out to this guy.
Yeah. TodaySpacePodcast@gmail.com. Tiny screws in space. That would be a pain in the ass. That would definitely be difficult. Actually, that's funny because...
But that's why we get the bees.
That's true.
Yeah, we're not going to do it.
Oh,
They're
okay.
too small.
Right.
But the bees...
Right. We can finally get those tiny screws all sorted. Do we have a place for them to sort them?
Space.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
There you go, folks.
So, lots of space. Hang on. Not to
Yeah.
suck us back in.
Yeah.
But, okay, give me your...
Politics part of it?
Uh, not get politics out of here, but just defense in general. So a lot of news recently about things costing a lot of money, like planes and submarines. So planes and submarines, fighter jets. We do need fighter jets. We do need space. We do need defense in the air. We do need defense like submarines. We do need these things.
Right.
But do we really need that many? And if not, could we be, this is, I don't know, could we be spending defense money in space? Are we already spending defense money in space?
No. NASA is basically the equivalent
Not NASA. But
right. Well, but it's all because NASA is basically the equivalent of like the national state parks as far as like an organization goes and where taxes are allocated from as far as I understand. There's no defense money that can go to NASA, and we as citizens can't even like give NASA money other than our taxes because that's like giving the FBI money.
So there is no
the CIA. Like you just like that's weird. Like you don't do that.
So there is no sector in the Department of Defense that has sort of jurisdiction over like what happens in space.
Not
space
necessarily,
defense.
not directly. From what I understand, like the Navy or the Air Force will buy rockets to launch their satellites. So yeah, technically, is money going to space inadvertently? Yeah, it is in the different branches of the military that use space operations. I know they use a lot of their satellite systems to know where they are on the planet, to know where, if they need to make some kind of military strike, if they have to, they can bring all their operations, they can communicate with all their operations. We can make sure that all our men and women that are fighting know what's coming, what's going to happen, and hopefully get them out before anything bad happens.
So, follow-up. Should the Department of Defense have some sort of sector that is focused on space? Something that's not NASA. NASA, like you said, Star Trek, they are exploring.
Right.
They don't spend on defense. But should there be, and I'm not talking about putting the laser on the moon.
Yeah.
But simply just, I don't know what shape it would take, but just defense from space.
I'm not the right person to definitely answer that question, but I'm going to take a stab at it anyways.
Yeah, let's. We're just hanging out, man. We can say whatever we want.
This is bullshitting with your friends. I think there is some level of that. I do think that NASA in some way does participate, whether they're a participating member on a panel that's working with the NOAA to work on weather satellites, or they're working with the Navy or the Air Force to coordinate. I mean, they're always working with the Navy because all of these operations that have to do with launches, whether we're launching humans, which we don't do anymore, or we're launching a satellite or something's coming back down, the Navy is involved. They are one of our biggest supporters, not supporters, but partners in the whole project. So, yeah, it's interesting when it gets involved in the political side, but that's inevitable. What was that?
What about like a meteor or something?
Meteor?
Something big traveling through space that could hit the Earth. That could be defense related.
Oh, definitely. And so right now,
we do need big lasers on the moon to shoot asteroids, right?
It's definitely been. Well, lasers on the moon has definitely been involved for not like a destructive purpose, but for hitting a solar sail with a laser so that it goes super, super fast. That has been discussed. So we could put lasers on the moon to travel through space.
Then when you say, hang on, I think I understood what you just said. So imagine there's a big rock coming our way.
Yeah.
Is there something we just put on the rock and we use a laser not to blow it up, but just to push?
So if something's coming like Armageddon style.
Sure. We go and what do we put on the?
So like Armageddon, we went there, we sent a drill, we bolted it onto the asteroid, and then drilled to then put a nuclear device to explode the asteroid.
That's
asteroid
the best
and comet
idea.
defense.
That's the best idea.
Don't blow up the
should
asteroid
make a movie
because it's
about
going to come back around. And it's going to come back around in a million pieces. So now you had to defend it once, now you're going to defend it a million times.
Why didn't they make a sequel?
I don't know.
Man. Oh God, they're going.
So-
You know they're gonna make a sequel now. Everything's being remade.
But that movie was interesting. They filmed that really quickly. Like that movie got put together super fast. But sorry,
come?
that's I don't know. I'm not sure. Maybe it was a last minute thing, or they only had a certain amount of time to film. I'm not sure.
Well, the asteroid was coming, so
It was coming. That's true. It was a
glad they
historical
pulled
event.
that off then. So what do you
So
put?
sorry, going back to asteroid defense. So I actually been looking into this. NASA's current detection network that we have that looks for foreign objects that are in the around us that could hit us, potentially dangerous things. I think the most recent thing is like 4 weeks. It's something close to that. It's not a lot of time. It's not enough time to mount a mission like Armageddon to send Bruce Willis and Ben Affleck to blow up an asteroid. And Steve Buscemi. You can't forget Steve Buscemi.
How about Matt Damon and Casey Affleck? Would that work?
I think that would work.
I think that
it would be a
work.
different movie though.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bummer.
Other things to defend yourself against asteroids. Simple gravity. Like if you send a spacecraft to an asteroid, and you need time for this. You need to know it's coming, and you need to have probably a year before it actually comes to you. So you bring the satellite to the asteroid, and you just fly it next to it. And so what you're doing, because everything has gravity in space, when there's very little, and you're in the vacuum of space, the asteroid is actually going to get pulled by the satellite and the spacecraft. So you could wiggle it away, which is all you really need to do if you catch it soon enough. But let's say you can't catch it soon enough. You could send a spacecraft that hooks on, and then we just put a booster on it and push it. That's easy enough. But can you get into the asteroid? Like, is it like titanium or like, iron oxide? Like, are you going to be able to drill? And if you're drilling in space and you can't get in the first place, you're just going to bounce yourself off the asteroid. Like, that's not good.
I imagine a future. I don't know when. Probably not soon.
Soon, right? Oh.
Sure. Maybe. I don't know. We'll see. Imagine a future where there's an asteroid coming, and businessmen here and businesswomen are saying, yes, there's an asteroid coming. Think about how much money is coming right through our backyard.
Yeah.
Or our front yard. And, and sure, there'd still be, cause for concern if it's aimed right at us.
Right.
But if we have the ability to so simply manipulate this thing's course, like you said, we can just sort of nudge it in one direction and nudge it so that it enters an orbit.
Yeah.
And then we can just mine the shit out of it.
Dude, you're describing the asteroid missions that NASA is looking at doing right now. It's
I was
part of the
reading
thing,
about a couple
yeah.
of them earlier this
The
week.
Obama administration kind of put this into play with NASA, and it's changing our focus to, okay, what do we do with an asteroid? Because the U.S. actually passed unanimously, which I thought was fascinating, but a new Space Act of sorts, or at least some kind of amendment to it, where this space policy is basically setting up the infrastructure that if people start launching, going to asteroids with valuable minerals and materials like titanium or things like nickel and things like that, they set up basically, okay, who's responsible for that? And it's the country that company launches from. That's the people that will own, technically, and be in charge of those materials. So mining materials and bringing them to us is part of what's starting to happen. And the new planetary program that just got released for the 2020s, we're going to an asteroid that's all metal. All metal. It's nickel and iron oxide. And it's supposedly the core of a planet that was around the size of Mars that got bombarded and just hit, and everything but the molten core was left, and now it's just a solid rock, a solid piece of metal. And
So
they're
it's not
extremely
molten
rare.
anymore, but
It's
it's
not
just
molten.
frozen.
It's just frozen. And that's rare in our solar system, finding one that's all metal like that. So that's the Psyche mission that we're going to, or Psyche. I'm not sure how they are saying it. So that's going to be really interesting. But we're also going to different places. One of the things we're going to try and do with the new missions is get a mission to an asteroid, bring it back to Earth, but not on Earth, in orbit around Earth. And it's a safe one, a nice long orbit that, you can...
Like a Rhode Island sized one, not a Massachusetts sized one.
Right. So something that you can get to and actually send people to, because we can't send people that far into space. Just haven't done it before, and the radiation that's out there that we don't really take into account is super dangerous. And what they did for the Apollo mission to get around the Van Allen belt and safely bring these astronauts to the moon and back is pretty fascinating. I mean, it's, if we had just done this blind and hadn't put all the effort into it, like it was just a bunch of assholes who got together and like, we're gonna launch into space, and they had all the tools and they did it, like, would not have worked well. Really wouldn't have. So
I can also imagine a future where there's just a bunch of assholes saying, we're gonna launch into space.
yeah,
That's probably gonna be sooner than we would.
well, yeah, it might be, especially with the asteroid mining stuff. You know, there's a company called Planetary Resources. I think the fear is that if we have corporations going after asteroids and bringing them back and then creating the first trillionaires, you know, that's going to be a big problem. But I would argue the opposite. I would say what's one of the things that starts most wars? It's resources, right? So if we can go out basically and grab these resources that are essentially infinite, I mean, if you think we're going to have an impact on our solar system, never mind the universe, even in our lifetimes, or before we would ever come up with something sensible, it's just not true. We're going to barely scratch the surface of what's out there resources wise. You know, the problem, it's a problem on our planet, is because we're limited to the resources we have. So if we start bringing asteroids and things that are valuable, yeah, the guys who went out and get it, the guys and girls that went out and get it, yeah, they should make money.
They need to bring like more broadband back. Like that's a resource that we don't have. Enough broadband. Bring us more broadband. That's a resource. You know, as much as we need our gold and nickel and other, you know, precious metals.
Broadband's important.
Yeah, broadband's
Steady
important.
internet speeds.
And
very
water.
important.
And water.
Water.
I
is
like
an
my
interesting
nickel.
one.
I like my zinc. But just give me some water, my broadband. I'll be okay.
Water's interesting because it's actually involved in that new space policy that we wrote. It's, I think, companies or people that discover water somewhere else have to disclose that they discovered it, which I thought was an interesting piece.
Yeah,
But
no one's going to disclose it. But
it
it's
also could be
it's
irradiated too,
it's a good
which
idea.
would be, we'd have to run it through the process. I mean, would you even drink it at that point? You know, if it's been space radiation, you might turn into the Hulk. I don't know. Maybe superpowers.
Cool.
Yeah. Or you could die. That's also a possibility.
Well, the water here isn't that much better.
Yeah. But I don't know. Maybe I'm feeling good about this. I hope you guys have enjoyed this. It's our first one, so that's it, guys. Thank you for listening. Are there any questions that popped up? No.
A lot of likes.
That's awesome.
Hey,
Thanks,
a
guys.
lot of
Appreciate
likes.
it. That's awesome. Yeah, we're gonna try and do these semi-regularly. SpaceX they have a pretty good schedule this year. I think 10 launches for this year, so that's huge.
10 launches?
10 launches.
Wow.
If I read it correctly the last time. And yeah, it's going to be cool to see. Again, Iridium NEXT, which is this whole thing, this is Iridium-1. This is 10 microsatellites that are going to be part of an entire constellation system. And so there's going to be more from Iridium. And, I mean, it's pretty cool for Iridium to have the belief in SpaceX to not only sign the deal with SpaceX after their big explosion on the launch pad, the anomaly, which, oh, by the way, the anomaly, for anyone who doesn't know, the anomaly was most likely caused because they went through all these fault tree analysis and pretty much ran those milliseconds they had just through the ringer constantly to figure out what could have been the problem. And what they came out with was that the liquid oxygen the hydrogen, right? Was it the helium?
You're
Whatever
telling
the
me.
gas-
You're telling us.
It was
You're
the
telling
hydrogen?
us.
Okay.
It was the
The
oxygen.
hydrogen. Was the oxygen? The oxygen, the liquid oxygen solidified because what was being loaded at the time was being loaded at such cold temperatures to save time. But it had been at such a cold temperature that the liquid oxygen froze. It froze so quickly, and there was another tank inside. So basically, the oxygen inside of a tank froze, and the other liquid tank probably got crushed. And essentially, it was this super fast fire that happened in seconds. That's what Elon Musk said. It didn't explode. It was a really fast fire. So what they're going to do, they were trying to save money and time, is what they were trying to do, which is what a company does, right? Never happened before in the history of rocketry. That they were pushing the limits, which is what we want them to do, which is what they're getting paid for, is to push the limits. So they are going to go back to the original procedure that they've done 700 times before with no problems. So that's huge. So they're going back to that procedure, and then every time they make a different design change, they have to go through a whole process and make sure, is this going to cause the same problem? So that's good. That's good. And it's great that Iridium Corp has the confidence in SpaceX, which clearly they seem to have. I mean, they're in parking orbit. Everything looks good. The mission, the whole reason we're launching, is going well. And not only that, they went with SpaceX on the first time they were relaunching one of their rockets, which is, you talk about risk. I mean, that's like literally a year ago, if you had asked whether landing rockets is possible, never mind reusable rockets is possible, the answer was an astounding no. Hadn't been done before. If it could be done, it would have been done already. But now we're seeing that that's totally not the case, and now we actually have something to push for. So SpaceX, their reusability is great for organizations like NASA, because we're getting a lot closer to being able to launch from American soil again. I mean, since 2011, when we lost the space shuttle, it was decommissioned, the ability for America to launch astronauts off our own soil disappeared. So since 2011, we've been paying the Russians and Roscosmos millions of dollars per seat to send astronauts into space, and you can't run a program off that, especially when you're arguing for nickels and dimes with the budget committee. How are you gonna keep saying that we're gonna keep paying millions of dollars per astronaut per mission? I mean, we send quite a few missions every year to the International Space Station, so how are we going to do that? So SpaceX is working on an entire system to do that, with the Falcon 9, the Falcon Heavy, the Dragon capsule. Boeing has money from NASA with the Commercial Crew Program, just like SpaceX, and they're working on the CST-100, which is another capsule to resupply the ISS and eventually bring humans to orbit as well. So having all these things possible, the biggest thing, the reason we can't launch humans into space, we have rocket companies, but that are American, but we don't have ones that can bring humans. It's a totally different. You create it differently. It has to have shielding. It has to have an emergency system that can fly away. So that's huge. We need those things, and that's what NASA smartly did with this Commercial Crew Program. So we'll see. And then you've got Blue Origin, which is Jeff Bezos' company, the guy who created Amazon, and they're doing the just human side. They're working on craft that just bring humans into space, where it's a lot smaller, requires a lot less force and thrust, and you could argue it would probably be easier to maneuver.
And when you say into space, I think his idea is more like let's bring him in like a gliding sort of.
That's Virgin Galactic.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's right.
Yeah,
So how
awesome.
does Blue Origin and Virgin Galactic, how are those two different? I'm getting those a little.
Sure. So Virgin
blurry.
Galactic is taking more of the
tourist
side, exactly.
Right.
So they're taking essentially, I think it's White Knight, which is it's an airplane. It's not even a rocket, and it flies up and releases this glider, and then does this move away, and the glider launches and goes into orbit. So it launches horizontally off, where Blue Origins launches from a rocket that, compared to, like, if the Falcon 9 is this big, Blue Origins is about that big. So it's a lot smaller. And obviously something that's really long like this is going to be difficult to maneuver. It's not it's not really that great. It's not, the center of gravity is tough to deal with, which is why they have the grid fins when it comes back down. But the new Shepard, which is Blue Origins, that's smaller and has more control, they've already tested it. It's actually gone to space. It's coming back. So they're working on just getting humans into orbit. So to answer the question finally, Blue Origin is bringing us the capabilities to send humans into space to things like the International Space Station or to some orbiting thing. So you can actually go into orbit, where the Virgin Galactic is, like you said, it's the tourist side. So you would go on a plane and you would just be up there for the duration of the flight, which I don't know what the actual times are, but you wouldn't be spending more than a day up there, maybe hours, where you'd actually feel weightlessness. So Virgin Galactic is bringing it into the hands of people that can spend the money for it first. So that's huge. That's just like what planes were like. Planes were like that when they first started. Planes were only for the rich and famous, but then when enough people paid and they figured out how to make it more cost effective, we can all fly planes now, right? So that's Virgin Galactic is trying to show people and give people the experience of seeing what Earth looks like from orbit, which is something only hundreds of people have ever seen, and those are all astronauts. So that's something that's going to open up people's minds, and they're going to be able to see, and those people are going to be the right people to open their minds, people with lots of money, right? So if we can show the people with lots of money that the Earth is this precious thing, great, right? That's awesome. Blue Origin is making it more possible for people like scientific organizations or smaller governments that want to have some kind of human space technology up there, and they want to develop all these different things, but they can't because you'd have to pay a SpaceX, millions of dollars per flight. Where Blue Origin, arguably, since it's a much smaller craft and the technology is their own, hopefully they will make that a lot cheaper to do. So
There's something just kicked back up on our screens. What are we looking at here?
So
Our SpaceX friend has returned.
Just to run, and then we'll come back to you with coverage
sure.
of the deployment of the first of the 10 Iridium
Alright,
satellites.
so
Nope, other way.
So come
Yeah.
back to us.
Whoa.
In a short while, but we're going to keep the webcast running for you.
all right, cool. So so there, right there, you can see that is their headquarters there, and I think in Hawthorne, California, if I'm not mistaken, at the actual SpaceX. And then here is just showing the parking orbit right now. I don't think... So the second stage already started up, so it looks like... Yeah, so it looks like they're already going into the second orbital path there. You can see...
It's right over
telemetry.
Madagascar.
Yeah, it's over Madagascar. And coming up soon, as you can see here, they can actually start deploying those 10 satellites. So we're going to check in. We're going to stay... We're already here, so... Might as well. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Sarah.
Hey,
You're amazing.
what's up? Oh, no problem, no problem.
All right.
So, what's it going to look like when these things get deployed? Is it going to be like gumballs coming out of a gumball machine, or how is it sort of like a bag that there's going to it's going to tear from the bottom and all the groceries will fall out? What is this going to look like?
If it's anything like CubeSats, which is probably my best qualification to be talking about all this stuff, it was a project we did in college at WPI. These things called microsatellites, they're probably not that, but it's probably a similar thing where it's a thing called a P-pod, where it literally releases these things on a spring and just kind of poops them out, just kind of like, little at a time. And they may have fuel on board, so it depends on the situation. If they have fuel on board, they'll probably release one at a time so they have enough spacing, and then they may ignite. They may start doing some movements to get themselves in the position. They would have to be. If it's a constellation system that's that complicated and complex, I would assume they'd have fuel on board. They probably have solar panels, so they'll probably have to do some kind of deployment of those solar panels so that they get power initially, and it'll probably just look like. What's the best way to describe this? It's just going to slowly extend. They're all going to come out and they're slowly going to just stretch out. Because they don't have to do a lot of movement. They're already moving super fast. So now it's just moving yourself into position. Which is why you go into that second orbit in the first place. Because getting yourselves that distance from Earth requires a lot of energy and speed. and you're always falling around the planet. You know what I mean? Constantly. So once you get into that right place, that's when they're going to deploy. It's coming up pretty soon here.
What happens to Stage 2 once it's already deployed the satellites?
Stage 2 will do some sort of decaying orbit back down, and they've definitely, they know where it's going to drop off and head back into Earth. And it's probably going to head into either close by where they are. I think they're in Cape Canaveral today where they launched. They could drop it off in the Pacific at Point Nemo. That's usually where they drop a lot of the old satellites that have died. But I would assume SpaceX is going to bring this back. So they could bring it into the Atlantic. That's where all their operations are. They may have their California team ready to take it in the Pacific, closer to shore. But they'll drop it off close by.
When they say drop it off, I mean, it's a
long, like...
So it wouldn't burn up in the atmosphere, right? It would simply just... So it just drops into the ocean?
Yeah,
at
I mean,
like
it'll take some
super
damage.
fast speed?
Yeah, it's going to take some damage when it comes back in. When the air comes back in, and, air is even though, it's not a solid object, I can move my hand, but think about, you've got, this thing is moving super fast in nothing. It's the void of nothing, right? There's nothing, it's moving through. So it can move as fast as it wants. As soon as it starts hitting these particles of air, it's going to start heating up. That's why, like, with the Apollo missions, you always saw the plasma come up around the satellite. That's because the air is heating up so much because it's getting the friction on air, at that speed, and it'll slow it down. So here we are here.
For confirmation of the first of the 10 Iridium satellite deployments.
The first satellite is away.
Oh!
The first satellite is away.
There we go. That's interesting. I've never seen a satellite deployment like this. We probably won't get images, but... No, that's good right there. Thank you. Unless people, if you guys want me to change to the screen, just let me know. We'll move it there. So just watch our beautiful faces.
They are lovely.
This guy, though, I mean, he's pretty handsome. He's pretty handsome.
He is.
I kind of like looking at him.
No video from the second stage. No, there's the video from the second stage, liar.
Separation signal was sent, and we've got a disconnect indicated, which means that the first of the 10 Iridium satellites should have successfully deployed off of
There you go, Iridium and SpaceX.
from the second stage. Now, currently, the plan is that every 100 seconds, we'll step through a sequence.
Every 100
that deploys
seconds.
The satellites. There are 2 stacks of satellites, 5 in an upper tier, 5 in a lower tier.
There we go.
So as we possibly
Can you guys hear
get
that?
video from the deployment orbit from the Falcon 9, you might be able to see some of the satellites. Others
cool.
on the far side of the dispenser we would not be able to see.
That is
as
cool.
They won't be in the field of view of the camera. So we're going to continue to listen in and come back to you as we have confirmation of additional deployments.
Okay. So, they haven't shown us anything yet, but yeah, look at those speeds, guys. 27,000 kilometers per hour. What?
Yeah, what? What's a kilometer?
Cool, guys. But yeah, well, thank you guys all for watching, man. This is awesome. Thank you so much. I'll have to do another one soon, and we'll be a little more prepared next time. But yeah, so there you go. Again, headquarters in Hawthorne. We will eventually be standing back here at some point. So once I figure out how to get us to one of these events, we'll do a launch hangout straight from there. Plus, I love SpaceX's music is so much better. It's like the future of. It's cool. Just say that it's cool, man.
NASA needs a jingle,
Yeah.
Ooh.
right? They've been
They
around
need
this
a jingle.
long. How have they not come up with a jingle?
I don't know. Did you hear that, NASA? You guys need a jingle. We might have to work on that.
We'll work on it. Oh, we will work on it.
Cool. Well, hey, for the last few things, let's take. We'll just show a little bit of the. This is the new studio that we're going to be doing. We'll be doing live broadcast here. So, And just pan it around a little bit. These are kind of like my favorite albums. Kind of shows you a little bit of what I'm about musically. We've got this Mars 1 concept poster. So this is what Mars 1 says they're going to do. Obviously, whether they actually get into space in the first place, never mind put humans on Mars without any other help, that's going to be interesting because they're just buying the equipment. That's their whole plan. They're just going to buy rockets and things and go. There's some qualified people there, but it's sketchy, to say the least. But
it looks
cool.
like all of this stuff could be picked up at a Walmart. Like, if you just had a big enough basket and cart, like, I'm pretty sure they sell all of this stuff at Walmart.
I think so, yeah.
No,
hammock right there, yeah.
Yep, definitely. They definitely sell that at Walmart.
Oh,
definitely.
Definitely. You could pick up fuselages at Walmart. At the right Walmart, probably, right?
Well, it would be a super Walmart.
Right.
Not one of those dinky ones.
Back here we've got, again, more things that musically I'm into. This is the original. You guys see this all the time. This is the original. And thank you, Sarah. So that's the original there. And then here, just in case anyone has any questions about my qualifications, it's when I worked on a spacecraft that was going to take solar readings of the sun. So yeah. Thank you. Alright, so I don't know if it's been 100 seconds yet, but what is that? That's almost 2 minutes?
I think it's like a day. I think it's a kilometer, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, it's 622 kilometers in altitude, which is... what is that? I don't know.
Side note, all of these people that we're watching at SpaceX right now, it is a Saturday, but man, they are dressed to chill. I'm seeing a lot, and to be fair,
they're
like
in California.
They're all like generally our age, so what? They're
true. It's a
give
young
or,
workforce.
They're give or take like 30 years old. Everyone's wearing hoodies and flannel shirts.
Yeah.
For everybody who's doing the math, the 100 seconds between the first and second satellite deployment has now counted down. However, we're in a gap right now between ground station coverage, so we're not able to confirm yet via telemetry that the second of the 10 Iridium
So their
satellites
ground,
is
what he's
deployed.
trying to say there is that so they don't know exactly the position of where these satellites are and the second stage in orbit, because the ground station hasn't called in to say we saw it. Because that's a big part of this space travel. Like, we don't just have a constant readout from the second stage or the thing that's in space. Like, these things need ground station viewing and pings back and forth to say, oh, like, that was the big thing when NASA first started, was they needed to set up stations around the planet because back then they didn't have the technology. The cell phone we're watching on has more power than the first thing that went into the moon. You know what I mean? So they needed these ground stations to check in and make sure these astronauts were still alive. They didn't know unless someone saw them. So that's pretty crazy. And they have a general idea of where they're gonna be, and so they kind of put a view on where they're gonna be, and then as they cross by, they say, "Oh, yep, we saw them." So that's what we're waiting for here. But you know what? I don't think we're gonna get much else out of SpaceX. I think video-wise, it's gonna be pretty difficult to see those satellites anyway. So we'll close that up there. Thank you, John.
Thank you for hosting.
Yeah,
this has been wonderful.
Thanks for coming on. Sarah, thank you for the beautiful and wonderful video you've been doing.
I've learned a lot.
That's
I've learned
good.
a lot in my first video.
That's good.
Videoing experience.
I saw you taking some creative freedom with it. That's good.
I liked it. I liked it. Yeah.
Thank you. And thank you guys for listening.
Thanks for watching.
Usually listening. Yeah, you guys are watching now. This is crazy. So thank you. Again, check out Today in Space podcast and AG3D printing at ag3d-printing.com, because that's what's helping fund all this fun shit. So cool, guys. Thank you, and we'll be back on our next broadcast. See you later.